Hey, I'm Brooke Halliday, licensed professional clinical counselor and your host of Coloring Outside the Lines. I believe that we are the byproducts of our experiences and the environments in which we were raised, and most of us have earned a few scars from those things over the years. I've been making it my mission to help people learn to accept themselves and have compassion for everything that they've survived. Through deep and vulnerable conversations with some amazing women, you're going to hear about major moments in their life when they chose to color outside the lines and demonstrate firsthand just how capable we all are. So get ready to be inspired as we color outside the lines and make something beautiful. Jessica Hunt is a licensed clinical social worker and offers psychotherapy services in California. She currently specializes in assisting parents and couples improve their relationships with themselves and others. She focuses on self-compassion, mindfulness, and connecting with one's identity as it evolves through life's transitions and stages. In addition to her therapeutic work, Jessica provides consulting, workshop facilitation, and public speaking, as well as other resources to support self-care and self-paced learning. I just happened to connect with Jessica via Instagram, and it was such a happy accident because chatting with her was so much fun and it was an immediate friendship connection. Listen now to hear the generational messages that Jessica received about body image. So, why don't we start there? Why don't you tell me about what the culture around food was like in your home? What the dynamics at home were like surrounding, I imagine, you and your mom, or you, your mom, and food, if you had siblings, that kind of stuff. Why don't we jump right in, start there?
Sure. I mean, the long and the short of it was the only thing that my mom and I ever argued about was food and weight and body stuff. We had a fantastic relationship. She passed away when I was 20.
Well, I'm sorry to hear
And
that.
but our whole life together, we had a really, really wonderful relationship. But there was this one sticking point, and it repeatedly came up. And with her and my dad and my sister and extended family, it was always just a big issue, and remains to be. And it just kind of became a really big part of my identity.
What
um
was the goal ultimately that your mom was trying to get you to? Was it, the quote unquote health, or was it a certain appearance? Was it eating a certain way? Like, what was the goal that she was trying to get you towards?
I think that she had it ingrained in her from her mother that looks were very, very important. And so much so that she battled with her own eating disorder behavior. And I think that while she understood intellectually that she didn't want to pass on certain ideals and habits, there was part of her that like almost couldn't help herself because it was so like much a part of her. And she tried really hard to undo a lot of the things that had been done to her. But
What kind
with
of things did you see her trying to change?
what was different about my relationship with her and her relationship with her mother was that her her love and respect and affection for me were not dependent on my looks. Whereas opposed
Oh,
to like with her mother, your worth was completely and your worthiness of love was completely tied to your looks. And so in that regard, she made huge leaps and bounds.
what was your relationship like with your grandmother then? I'm curious. Like,
Very difficult, very difficult.
okay.
And she came by her issues honestly. My grandmother was a survivor of Auschwitz. She was a very, very beautiful woman, and she was well educated. She spoke 9 languages, including German, which helped her a lot. And she was very beautiful, and she kind of sees those traits, particularly her beauty, as one of the reasons that she was able to survive the camps. The main form of abuse that she dealt with in the concentration camps was being raped. That was, while psychologically extremely damaging, physically, it was something she was able to survive much easier than other forms of abuse in the camps.
Right.
Um, and one of the ways that she kind of basically how she coped with the trauma of that was that she was just so beautiful and that it almost like they liked her sort of thing. It was a way for her mind to kind of cope with all the trauma. And also because it was a form of abuse that she didn't die from, it was also how she survived.
Yeah.
So for her, very literally, looks are about survival. And you need to be beautiful and you need to be thin and you need to be desirable in order to survive. She ended up getting, because of the way she presented herself, because she spoke German, she ended up getting a job in, when she was in the camp, she was in a job in the office doing office work instead of doing manual labor, which also helped her. She used to tell me stories about how some of the guards would give her extra little bits of food because they liked her and she could speak with them in German. And so there was a different rapport that she would have with them. And even though it was all awful, it all kind of the message that she got was, this is how you survive and this is the most important thing.
I'm like trying to hold the fact that like she probably had this pressure on you to look a certain way, and she also survived these really horrific things at the same time, and like my heart is being like so pulled towards your grandmother right now.
Oh,
And
I
I'm also
know.
imagining like little you having to like hear these stories and also hear these messages from your grandma. And I'm also aware of the fact that like I commented on how gorgeous I thought your hair was when we got on this call. And now I'm like so self-conscious about that.
No, I appreciate the compliment. I appreciate the compliment. The compliment was nice. I no, but it makes it complicated because
Yeah.
my this is gonna sound awful, but my grandmother was, can I swear?
Oh,
Okay.
100%.
She was a huge bitch. Like, she was horrible to me.
Hmm.
I loved her deeply. I respected her deeply. We had a very, very like close relationship in a lot of ways, but she was also awful. And it's really hard to like hold both of those truths and to know intellectually like where all of her issues came from and what she had been through. And not just, I mean, she had been engaged when the war started. Her fiance was killed. Multiple of her parents were killed. Her multiple of her family members. She even her mother died when she was 2 years old, and she was raised by her grandmother who died when she was 13. And she experienced an extraordinary amount of loss. And then my mom died when my mom was 49, and so she had to endure her daughter's death as well. I mean, like she's dealt with unimaginable loss and unimaginable trauma.
Right.
So
Holy
there's
shit.
there's such a huge part of me that like I told you multi-generation when you I said that I had some
Yeah.
multi-generational crap to talk about. So there was definitely like intellectually I know everything that she's been through and how incredibly strong and resilient she was. Ironically, just the way there was multiple ways that she would try and be controlling, but the primary way was just really reinforcing, you have to be beautiful, you have to be skinny, it's the most important thing, and if you're not, bad things will happen to you. And like know where it came from, but it didn't make it any less difficult for me growing up with those messages. And then my mom as well, and her knowing, my mom was also a therapist, and she knew so she knew better, and she would say that she knows better, but then sometimes she would just have such a hard time not like reinforcing some of those lessons that she learned, even if
I
they were
mean,
like those lessons light.
nobody really wants to describe their mother or their grandmother as strong and resilient. Like people want the compassionate mom and grandma or the soft, the cuddly, the
Hmm.
warm. Like those are
Hmm.
the words people want to
Hmm.
describe those caregivers as.
For sure. And my mom was very warm and compassionate and loving, but in spite of her mother.
Right.
So, the messages I got my whole life were all around body and food. And yeah, it was the only thing my mom and I ever would argue about, and then there was also issues on my dad's side that I'm not even like gonna go into because like that's a whole other story. But like um but it was both sides of the family. So it's been a lot of unlearning for me. And I remember going to therapy some years ago and kind of coming to this realization with my therapist that I never accomplished anything in my life by berating myself. I'm very successful. I have a great marriage. I have two healthy, happy kids. I have a great career. By many measures, I have a lot of successes in my life. And not a single one of them was accomplished by me like shitting all over myself. And so, why I kind of realized in my work with this therapist that, like, why did I think that constantly shitting all over myself for my weight and my looks? Why was this going to get me where I wanted to be? Why was that going to help me accomplish my goals? Because it's not what worked for any of my other accomplishments. And so I went down a path of like trying to learn self compassion, and that's something I'm still working on. But it's been, that's really what the last handful of years I've really been focusing on. It's
Serious.
been hard.
Oh, absolutely. All of that deprogramming or unwiring, however you want to look
Mm-hmm.
at it, like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's messy and it's
Mm-hmm.
complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a trauma therapist, and so I always like go back to like the childhood stuff, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining
Oh,
little
you'd have a
you.
field day with me.
But well, I'm actually like I'm imagining like little you, and so like I'm curious, like what are the things that little you is berating yourself about? Like, can you remember the things that you were like nitpicking yourself out on? Like, I know there's the trend going around right now about like, can you notice my biggest insecurity? No, I bet not. Nobody's noticing yours either. And so, like, I'm
Mm.
curious, did you have a biggest insecurity? When do you remember noticing insecurities? Like, at what age did you start to become kind of aware of these things within yourself?
Sure. I mean, my biggest insecurity has hands down always been my weight, always. Without question, it has been like the biggest plague of my life has been dealing with my body and my weight. And I don't remember a time in my life where that wasn't the case. I'm actually currently working with a different therapist. I started doing EMDR
Yes,
for the very
yes,
first
yes,
time.
yes, yes.
I'd never done it before. I don't do it in my practice. I'm not trained in it or anything. And I'd never done it before myself. And I just started with a new EMDR therapist. One thing, and we're talking about a lot of these same themes. And something that came up, speaking of childhood, was I remembered an instance sometime in elementary school. I want to say like fourth or fifth grade or something like
Mhm.
that, of being teased by kids at school about being
Yep.
heavy. I developed early. So I was the first girl with boobs. I was the first like girl
Ugh,
with curves
my
and stuff.
soul sister. I was right there with you. Fourth or fifth grade. Seriously.
Yeah. And when you see a 9-year-old with boobs, like kids are not mature enough to anyways, so it came up this memory of being teased about my weight in elementary school. And what was like so like impactful about that in my EMDR session was that it the reason that that particular memory stuck out so much for me was because it reinforced that it wasn't just my family who believed this about me. It was what other people in the world thought about me too. And it validated all of those messages that I had received from family about me and my weight and my body. That, like,
Mhm.
oh, it isn't just my crazy family. These people see it too. So that makes it true. I am fat. I am less lovable or less likable because of that. And so it kind of reinforced that message from them. And so it was pretty impactful. So when you ask, like, early memories of that, I would say that in terms of like discussions in the family, my whole life, I don't really know when it would have started. But in terms of like a memory where I realized, like, oh, society thinks this way too. Although I'm, not that because I was like 9. So I didn't, but it was more like, oh, that person, that other fourth grader believes that as well.
Were you othered? Like, did other people like not want to be friends with you or okay.
No, no, I was fairly well liked. It was just always a theme that, if someone's going to get teased about something, that was the thing.
Right.
Like, kids tease even if, that's just life. People don't get away from and no, I actually I had great friendships. I was, really well liked throughout, elementary through college. Like I didn't what that wasn't having friends or anything like that. That was never the problem. But if there was teasing to be had, that was the subject.
Did you ever do anything to try and change your body?
Oh gosh, yeah. I might have been the youngest person at many a Weight Watchers meeting.
Those damn Weight Watchers meetings.
Oh yeah, I've done every diet on the planet. Working out, going to the gym in at very young ages, and not with the oh, I want to be healthy, but like no, trying to change my body.
Was your mom thin? Like, were you trying to emulate like your mom? Okay.
She is gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're
There,
gorgeous too.
thank you. She was thin and gorgeous. My mom used to say that it was the way I rebelled, that I didn't I got good grades. I didn't drink or do drugs. I was a good kid. I was a well-behaved kid. And the thing I did to rebel was I insisted on being fed, basically.
Stop it. Stop. Stop.
That was how I rebelled, was through food of like, oh, you say I can't have this chip? Well, fuck you. I'm gonna eat these chips. And that my relationship with food was my fuck you to it was my form of rebellion. And I don't think she's entirely wrong. And that
Okay.
I think that to some degree there might have been some truth to the fuck you, I'm gonna do this anyways. And to the point where like it created a healthy some unhealthy, definitely not healthy, an unhealthy like binge type behavior with food at times where I think that there was some element of the, well, then fuck you, then I'm gonna get down with this, whatever I'm eating. So I think that there was some truth to that, but it didn't have to be.
When did you decide that you wanted to have a different relationship with food?
Oh, I tried that many times over the years. I think that it really started when I went to my last therapist, the therapist I saw before my current EMDR therapist. That therapist specialized in peripartum issues. I had really, really bad postpartum anxiety. So I ended up seeing a therapist who specialized in postpartum anxiety and postpartum peripartum mood stuff. In my work with her, a lot of my weight stuff came up because my body changed dramatically in parenthood.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to talk about
I
that too.
yeah, I had a I had and had continue to have a really, really difficult time getting my body back, whatever that means. And I
Okay.
don't. My body is completely and 100% different. And I know that it would be even if I lost weight, just the nature of getting older, the nature of becoming a parent, and the way your body changes when you become a mother, like that would be the truth regardless of my weight. But I was really, really struggling with how much heavier I was those kids and having a more and more difficult time, not doing some crash diet and like dropping 20 pounds like that, because that's, I would always be able to course correct before, and course correcting was like getting exceptionally harder. And my therapist made the audacious claim of saying like, she's like, well, what if you just don't lose the weight that you've gained? And I was like, that's unacceptable. Like, that, I can't. And so we did a lot of work around that. And I was angry with her. I was angry with her for even putting it into my mind that I should accept myself this way.
How
Um,
dare she?
I know. And like what's so funny is that like as a therapist, it's like do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like
Yes.
I can say things to my clients that I so struggle doing for myself, and I see the irony. But yeah, like working on that self-acceptance piece, because I was like, no, but if I accept myself like this, then it'll never change. Like I can't accept myself like this because I need that lack of acceptance to push me towards change. And that's when that whole like, well, when has that ever worked for you? Have any of the accomplishments you've ever made been because you like talk shit to yourself until you made it happen? No. You didn't get to where you are in your career, your family, or whatever, because you were like being mean to yourself. Those all
Mhm.
came from believing in yourself and accepting yourself and wanting to grow in a very like pro you way. So why are you doing it this way? And so then I started reading the intuitive eating book and kind of looking more into the whole concept of intuitive eating and trying to unlearn a lot of diet culture stuff. And it's been a journey, and it's still hard for me because I am the heaviest I've ever been in my life. Ironically, I probably have one of the best relationships I've ever had with my body and with food, even though I am significantly heavier than I've ever been in my life. But then now I'm at the stage of, okay, so how do I work with this self-love and self-acceptance while at the same time prioritizing my health, but having to actually be about health this time,
Yes.
not be
Yes.
about the vanity metrics. And that's something I'm still trying to figure out because I don't know how to lose weight without doing it unhealthfully, either literally like physically or mentally. So kind of my journey right now is, okay, I'm at a really great place in terms of my mental health around my body, but how do I keep that while working on my physical health
What makes
so
you
that so
physically
that
say that you're not healthy?
I don't feel good in my body.
Okay.
I don't feel good in my body, and I think that I will enjoy aspects of my life more with less weight on me because they'll be easier to do. I want to move my body in ways that I can't right now. So it's like trying to reconcile, how do I keep the good mental health around my body that I have worked so hard for over these last handful of years while marrying that with behaviors that I don't know how to do without going to the unhealthy place. I don't know how to do the eating thing and the exercise thing in a mentally healthy way. It's like I've done one piece of it and now I'm trying to figure out the other piece.
I think that's really cool that you're not rushing into figuring it out though. That you're like, I have this one piece under control. I have this mental piece under control. And like, I'm loving myself right now. And I know there's more to figure out here and I'm going
Mhm.
to figure it out. And so, like, I think that's really, really cool. Like, you're laying the foundation so that way you can do something sustainable. And I mean, that's why crash stuff doesn't work, right? There's no foundation.
Totally.
It's like house of cards on an airplane. It's not going to stay up when we, try and make the landing.
Yes.
How did you maintain such a strong sense of self-worth through all of that?
Because all the things that my parents did right.
What did they do right?
As much as I struggled with them in that one category, and every other category, they did a really good job at feeding my self worth and how smart and capable and funny and interesting I was. All the aspects of my personality and how my brain worked and who I was as a person, that was well appreciated and respected and loved. And the only aspect of me that was ever looked down upon was the physical one. And so while that caused a whole mess of issues, the rest of it was so strong that I really love me. I don't love that aspect of me, but the rest of me I really enjoy. Not all the time, like I know I'm annoying, but like no, I mean like everyone is to some
I was gonna
degree.
say, who isn't
Who
really?
isn't? But like, but I do have a lot of self-worth and pride in myself with regard to other aspects. Like I know I'm a good friend. I really like the way my brain works. I know I'm smart. I know I'm funny. I know that I'm caring and compassionate. Like I know these things about me, and my parents knew those things about me. As strong as the messages were on the negative end about my body, they were twice as strong about who I was otherwise.
Were the messages explicit about your body, or was it like,
Oh yeah.
oh, like give me an example? Like, are you comfortable giving me an example?
I'll give you an example from my grandmother
Okay.
because she recently died at age 104.
Holy crap.
Yeah, the woman was determined. She was deserving of a lot of respect as much as she also was awful. She was also incredible. In terms of direct, unmistakable commentary on my weight is I would go visit her. She lived down in LA and I'm up in the Bay Area. I would go down and visit her every time, my whole life. When I would visit her, I would get a hug. She would feel my hips and waist. She would pat me down, basically. And if I was heavier than the last time that she saw me, I would get up. If I was thinner than the last time that she saw me, she would take my face and go, I love you, without fail. So that's just one of many, many, many examples. Remember one time in college, I was visiting her and we were having a little sleepover because we would have these awesome sleepovers. That's why it's complicated. There's lots of good memories in there too. And she asked me if I had a boyfriend, and I didn't. But you don't say like, "Don't worry, Grandma, I'm getting laid plenty. Don't worry about it." Like you don't say that. Like you just say, "No, I'm not dating anybody. No, I don't have a boyfriend." And her response was, "Oh, it's okay, sweetie. Someday you'll be thin, and then someone will love you." Literally verbatim her response to a girl, 19-year-old girl who had just gained the freshman 15. And I was like, oh, thanks, Grandma. Those
Oh
are
my
just a
goodness.
couple examples.
I'm just like
Oh.
speechless. Like I know like our grandparents' generation is kind of notorious for
Oh,
like
saying
saying things.
shit.
Yeah, that it's like, why did you think that was okay? Like in a lot of contexts and like
Hmm.
specifically regarding weight, it's just like sometimes they just really crush it with the inappropriate things.
Hmm. In high school, in front of one of my girlfriends, she offered to pay me $5 for every pound that I lost.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, thanks, Grandma. I'm good. Can we not have this discussion in front of Ashley?
Poor you and poor Ashley having to listen to that.
Yeah.
Are you honest with your husband about like days where you're struggling with your body image and
Oh, very much. And he could not be better about it. He's a dream. He loves me at any size, any shape, any way. And he is very kind and sweet and thoughtful and accommodating and just complimentary. I mean, of all aspects of me, but when it comes to my looks, he makes it very clear that no matter where I am on the spectrum of anything, he couldn't love me more and encourages me often to be kinder to myself.
there's some really good men out there who are going to help a lot of women do a lot of
Oh,
really good healing.
absolutely. I got one of the good ones for sure. He's incredible.
What are you guys doing different as parents? Your mom did stuff a little bit different.
Mm.
You have even more knowledge and education. What are you doing different with your kids?
Trying to make food morally neutral, that there aren't good foods and bad foods or healthy or unhealthy foods. We're trying to just explain some of the like basics about foods and what they do for you and what quick energy feels like and long energy feels like from foods and about balance and trying to take that and food is never either a reward or a punishment. It's not a treat to be had. They don't earn getting ice cream or earn getting a treat or anything like that, or don't have food of some kind taken away as some sort of punishment. It just sometimes we have a treat and sometimes we don't. Sometimes, but like behavior in one way or the other does not result. It does not have a relationship with whether or not they eat certain things. And a lot of language about body image, body stuff, and people being different shapes and sizes, and that's okay. And that it, how they should talk to people and what they should or should not say to people with regard to their physical appearance, and trying to also de-emphasize some of the negativity around certain labels. My 7-year-old the other day commented that I'm fat, and
You or they are?
no, that I am,
Okay.
and said like, you have a big belly. And I was like, you're right, I do. And I tried really hard not to have it like hurt my feelings, but show him that like people have all different shapes and sizes. And you're right, like neutral about my body, neutral about my stomach. It wasn't a morally good or bad thing. And then we talked about when and how to comment on people's appearance, why you might say something, why you might not. Like just having a conversation about it, but not make it like a calling me fat or saying I had a big belly is some like horrible thing that you can't say to people. Like why some people wouldn't appreciate that comment and how to be tactful, but at the same time not making fat a bad word.
How was that experience for you? Because I mean, I know we use those moments as parenting experience or like parenting moments for our kids, and we are also still humans. And so I'm curious, like, if you still have any emotions or reactions.
Not in that moment, because I still have the most influence in his perceptions and his behaviors. But I worry that at some point society is going to have a bigger pull on his opinions than I do. And that might change the way he views me.
Oh,
So that's probably something to worry about, but I'm not there yet. I haven't crossed that bridge yet. I also try and like explain other things. I'm like, yeah, my belly is big. And you know what's amazing about it? I grew you and your brother inside of it. How cool is that? Like you see the stretch mark right here? That was you. That was you growing inside me. And like try and appreciate it from that perspective. I think that it helps that they see both my boys see their father being so kind and affectionate and loving and sweet with me regardless of my size. I think that that modeling will hopefully teach them how to treat other people as well.
absolutely.
I'm nervous about the moment that they get the message that there might be something wrong with their mom because of the way I look.
As boys,
That's
they might get a little bit different messaging than girls did growing up. Are you concerned about the messages they might receive about their body at all?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, my kids probably won't be stick figures, not in their genes today. I want them to have a positive body image as well. So that's something, and I don't know exactly what that looks like with boys, but I'm gonna learn.
I'll be right there alongside you, learning what that looks like.
I will learn because I don't think boys are immune from it.
So I always kind of like to move towards wrapping up and ask if you could go back and talk to your younger self or someone going through body image struggles. What advice would you give them? What would you say to someone in the thick of it?
Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, operate, work on the self-compassion piece. That's the hardest part and the part that's most necessary in order to do anything else. I mean, I'm still working on it, but also that they're lovable and worthy and there's nothing wrong with them, even if society tells them that they are supposed to look a certain way, or not just society, people that they love tell them that they should be looking a certain way.
Because they think it's going to help them survive.
Mm-hmm. And also like start their journey to true like intuitive eating. Like how does food truly make them feel? What foods do they truly like or not like? What does it feel like when they're paying attention to their body while they're eating? What movement for them is actually joyful and not compensatory? What kind of relationship around food and movement can they have that is truly coming from like a place that feels right and good and joyful to them as opposed to what they think they should be doing?
How about for those loved ones trying to support someone struggling with body image? Do you have any advice for how they could help someone? Maybe things your husband does or things that he could do.
Just being helping them feel like they're loved and lovable no matter what, that your affection and love and care for them is not dependent upon what they look like, encouraging them to be kinder to themselves when they're having a hard time being kind to themselves, reminding them to like, hey, knock it off. My husband will say, stop being so mean to my wife. Help them stop being their own worst critic by encouraging them to be gentle with themselves.
It's easy to be mean to ourselves when nobody's there regulating us because
Oh yeah.
we're the only police in there stopping that nasty voice in our head sometimes. So it's nice to hear other people standing up for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your experience with me.
Yeah, I could talk about this for a long time. Hell, I'm in therapy for it. Um,
We should all be in therapy, right?
100%. 100%. Yeah, I something I didn't mention was the reason my mom passed away is that she had cancer and I
Oh,
have the genetic predisposition for the same cancer. It's the BRCA2
oh
gene.
no.
And so a year and a half ago, I had to have a full hysterectomy, my uterus and ovaries and everything removed, and which put me into menopause, which makes it even harder to lose weight and harder to
Yeah.
regulate my weight. And so there's just been this whole other new layer of trying to and also the other ways that my body, and I'm on hormone replacement, but it's not nearly as much estrogen as my body had. I went on when I was 38. Like the amount of estrogen in the patch is not what a normal 38 or what I, as a 38-year-old, had in my body. So while it made the transition to being in menopause like that much smoother, as opposed to like this abrupt change, it's still a change. And so there's lots of changes in my body with that as well. And so that's a whole other like component in this. So I just thought of it. And so I just wanted to mention it, that like there's
That's a
throughout.
huge physical and emotional thing.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
so that's another component that like I'm like integrating into the work that I'm doing with myself. So yeah, I could talk about this subject for a long time.
We might need to talk again about the BRCA gene, because like that's a real thing, and like when you have that, that's serious, and like that's a big choice that a lot of people deal with of,
Mhm.
you know, do you have the hysterectomy, because ovarian and cervical cancer are no joke, and they're hard
Mhm.
to catch until it's too late, and
Yep.
you know the
Yep.
treatment options are nasty, and yeah, we
Yeah.
might be having to meet
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I was 20 years old when my mom was 49 when she died from ovarian cancer. I was 16 when she was diagnosed. So
Oh my goodness.
I could talk about that whole other subject about dealing with with chronic and fatal illnesses and death and all the things that have come, and it'll be in October, it'll be 20 years. So in October, it will be as many years that I lived with her that I've lived without her.
Wow.
And that is a mind fuck. So
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I know that the topics that we talk about on this podcast can be heavy and bring up a lot of emotions for people, and that's no reason to shy away from these conversations. If you're a fan of trying to get these conversations out to as many people as possible, I could use your help. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the podcast helps it reach more people. I always love to hear your feedback on the episodes that we put out and the topics that you want to hear more about. So head to www.redbirdcounseling.mn.com. From there, you can send me an email and join our online email community to get more updates about the podcast and everything happening mental health and Redbird Counseling. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Redbird Counseling MN, and Facebook, Redbird Counseling MN21. Until next time, remember, you're not alone, your story matters, be kind to yourself, and don't be afraid to color outside the lines.